Hi everyone and welcome to the third episode of Therapy Thursday. We're going to be having a look today at the head and neck, in particular the masseter muscle or the cheek, the TMJ, which I pointed out last week, the temporomandibular joint, and we're going to be having a look along the neck, particularly the rhomboideus, splenius and trapezius muscles, which make up what we technically refer to as the top line, and also the sterniomandibular, which is the muscle that runs under the neck. So just a reminder from the diagram that you'll have seen in last week's episode of where these muscles are located in the horse. A couple of things to be mindful of. So the masseter, obviously the cheek muscle, is used in moving the jaw, in chewing. So if you have a horse that might not have the best teeth or that is in need of dental work, then they might find this quite difficult, especially if you're massaging that muscle and therefore pushing the muscle against potentially sharp teeth. So do make sure that their teeth are in good order before you do this, or if they are really uncomfortable around that area, it might be that the teeth need looking at. The splenius is above the vertebrae and is the muscle that, as it develops, is the one that we identify as building top line. This is mostly used in the lifting of the head, extending the neck and turning the head from side to side. It's labelled here as a sternocephalicus, but you can refer to it as a sterniomandibular, which I find easier to say. And this muscle is below the jugular groove and runs from the sternum to the jawbone, and it supports the flexing of the neck, bringing the head down and in towards the chest, and also helps in the opening of the mouth. And the trapezius has kind of two portions to it, but essentially they are both involved in helping move the shoulder. Okay, so here what I'm attempting to do is just to shake Mojo's mane and neck, and you can see it's pretty solid. Nothing wants to really move. You can tell he's kind of looking out at what else is going on in the world around him, so he is a bit tense. Similarly, I'm also trying to just shake the sterniomandibular. Again, there isn't a huge amount of movement in that, but all I'm doing is I'm just lightly kind of cupping it and trying to move it from side to side. I'm not wrenching it. This is kind of part of what we talked about is called petrissage, which is where there's a sort of ringing or rocking or shaking movement. So what I'm doing here is I'm just working my hand up his mane with a rocking movement. So I'm kind of cupping my hand again over the mane and sort of pushing it back away from me and towards me in a rocking movement. Now what I'm doing is a ringing motion. So I'm pulling one hand forward and pushing the other hand back and then going the other way. So again, this is still petrissage, but it's more of a ringing and squeezing motion than necessarily just a rocking motion. And then I've gone back to the sterniomandibular and just kind of checked in to see how that feels. You can notice his head carriage has come down a little bit. Obviously, he's playing with his hay net, which isn't helping. But hopefully you can start to see that there's a little bit more wobble in there. Things are starting to soften up a little. And he seems to be taking a slightly more relaxed posture. So this is continuation of that. Sorry, we moved for the camera. But essentially, I've just continued to do that with him. And you can see now just how wobbly that muscle is. Similarly, underneath the sterniomandibular, as that moves, you can actually see the movement translating through to the top of the neck. And he's there wanting to reach down and stretch through that rather than being in that upright, tense posture that we saw earlier. So now we're coming on to the TMJ, the temporomandibular joint. As mentioned before, this is where the upper and lower jaw join. So if you have a horse that tends to carry itself quite tense in the jaw, you often get some issues in the TMJ. And this is a great massage for them just to help loosen that up. What I'm doing here is some fingertip circles very lightly around the masseter, so the cheek muscle. This is very similar to when you have a toothache or a headache and you just take a couple of your fingers together and gently rub in circles on that area. It's as light as that. What I'm also doing here as well is I'm just putting my thumb in the side of his mouth and trying to touch my thumb to the roof of his mouth. Mo tends to carry quite a bit of tension in his face, and you can see there he's not really moving his mouth very much. So it just really encourages them to kind of let go of that tension that they might have in the jaw and kind of respond properly to the massage work that you've just done. So I'm hoping that's a good introduction to the massage that you can do of the head and neck area. Just to recap, you're looking at the cheek muscle, the masseter, which can be massaged with just fingertip circles, starting lightly and being aware of any dental issues. We then looked at loosening the muscles along the mane by using ringing and shaking. Again, very lightly. You can increase this once you start to feel the movement of the muscle under your hands. You will feel where you get resistance and where it's stiff, and where that will start to soften. And then similarly with the sternomandibular, you may feel that is quite solid, but the more that you do that just gentle movement, sort of side to side, to encourage that recognition in the body that, hang on a minute, this area is actually supposed to move, then the more that the horse can relax as well, the more kind of movement that you will get in that entire area. So next week we will be looking at stretches for the head and neck area. See you then.